20.
At the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance. It is Wednesday, July 10th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, your needy MBFF. I'm here for you. The next two nights I will not be. I will be doing the show, but we'll be in Philadelphia at Netroots Convention, a big convention. I'll be into Michelangelo will be there as well, and some of the other hosts will be there. We'll be going to some of the panels, interviewing some of the guests. And what I'm really intrigued with, the same way I'm intrigued here, is what not just the well-known guests and activists are saying, but what the grassroots activists who are there, just the attendees, what are their views of the candidates, of the issues, what's going on. And I'm going to try to capture a lot of that, as well as intersperse people who are activists that a lot of us know who they are. It'll be some members of Congress. We'll try to catch up with them and get them on as well. But I'm looking forward, so I'll be there the next two nights. In fact, reminder on Friday, July 12th, the Lights for Liberty Vigil, which many people have reminded me, including last night, will be happening. There'll be one in Philly during the day, and I'm planning to go to it at least a little bit in between covering everything else at the convention and try to grab some quick sound bites of people there saying why they're there, what's going on, and why it's so important. And if you're interested, it's their goal for Lights for Liberty is to end the human concentration camps. They're going to try to bring thousands of people from around the country, in fact, around the world, to stand up and denounce Trump's, as they call them, their concentration camps. These, as some have called, a death camp. And if you want to know where they are in your area, go to lightsforliberty.org. That's lights, L-I-G-H-T-S, F-O-R, liberty.org, and you'll see the local events. Go out there. By the way, the ambassador to the U.S. from the U.K. was forced to resign today because of his politically incorrect words, calling Trump inept and an idiot and all of that. So, and Trump had lashed out at him for his words, and so did conservative media. So now he's fired for his words, essentially. Where's the outrage on the right? These people hate political correctness. Oh my God, freedom of speech for everyone. But when you say anything that pisses them off, they want you silenced. That is the absolute hypocrisy of the right. Remember that. We all know that. But I just want to bring it up again that they're full of BS. You know, they are unbelievable. They're not about political correctness. They're about silencing us and making us say only what they want, and we dare contradict them. They want you fired. They want you silenced. That's what they want. So don't forget that. So I mentioned last night that I would talk about the Trump's attack on the ACA that was going on in federal court, and it's such an important issue, and it deserves more media attention. Not just the case and what happened in the Court of Appeals yesterday, but the hypocrisy and lies of Donald Trump. And this is really, really important. This is going to impact countless people, including Trumpers. Trump supporters, you should listen very carefully to this, because this is not partisan. This is about your beloved white savior who is trying to take away your health care for your family, protections for pre-existing conditions, allowing your children to stay on your policy, allowing caps to be re-implemented on insurance policies, and the list goes on. And what makes it even worse, that Donald Trump lies to his base. And I wish his base would not accept the lies anymore. Because here is Donald Trump at his campaign kickoff, just last month in Orlando, Florida, that bragging that he's going to protect pre-existing conditions no matter what. There's never going to be impacted. He's there for you. And then I'll tell you the truth after that. Here's clip number one. It's a short clip.
We will defend Medicare and Social Security for our great seniors. We will defend it like nobody else. And we will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions. Always. Always.
Now, that's a lie. Now, Donald Trump lies all the time. At this point, I said, I was on MS Sunday. I'm like, let's not even fact check like, oh, this is a lie. Just assume everything he says is a lie and just highlight those things that might be true. But this lie matters. This lie affects people's lives. It affects your family's life. So let me tell you what's going on. So there's Donald Trump last month in June saying that he is defending coverage of pre-existing conditions, right? In reality, since March, the Trump administration, reportedly at the direction of the White House, but in any event, the Trump administration's lawyers are in federal court trying to strike down the ACA and specifically arguing that all of the ACA should go away, including coverage for pre-existing medical conditions. So there you have Donald Trump in June telling you, misleading you, lying to you, that you and your family's health care is safe. Meanwhile, what he's really doing, because he's the liar, deceitful person he is doing everything he can to take away you and your family's health care coverage. This is very serious. This is literally life and death, no exaggeration. This is life and death for people. And let me go through a little bit what happened, because sadly yesterday, from what we heard from the two GOP-appointed judges on the Federal Court of Appeals in New Orleans, it seems Trump is closer to his dream of getting rid of the ACA. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, why is the ACA, why is Obamacare back in the courts? Didn't we have a decision a few years ago that said it was valid? Well, we did. That was 2012, famous decision. Chief Justice Roberts came along with the liberals and upheld it. But what happened is something has changed. Something has destabilized the entire ACA, and all of this is the fault of one group, Donald Trump and the GOP. And that is not partisan. That is the facts. That is and I will lay it out exactly why that are the facts. This is not a partisan endeavor. These are people's lives we're dealing with here. What happened is the ACA was upheld in 2012. It was functioning fine. For some good, for some not, but it was there. But no matter what, the protection of the ACA went beyond just those on the marketplace. It required every insurer around this country to cover you for pre-existing conditions. It did not allow you to be outpriced and charge ridiculous high rates because you were sick. And insurers couldn't drop you anymore if you were sick, the way they could in the past. And the list goes on. I'll go through all the benefits in a second. But what Donald Trump did in the GOP in December 2017, what happened here? It is all them. As part of their massive tax cut for the wealthy, they got rid of the individual mandate, which required people to get health insurance. And they ended it. They got rid of it. And at the time, it was being debated, getting rid of the individual mandate. Numerous experts, and I wrote about it for the Daily Beast, numerous experts warned them in the media, in press reports, if you get rid of the individual mandate, you're going to destabilize the entire ACA and it might collapse. But they didn't care for two reasons. One is the GOP was caring about their tax cut for the wealthy. Even Congressman Chris Collins and Lindsey Graham and others, but Chris Collins very clearly said, if I don't give this tax cut to my donors, they're never going to donate to me again. So literally they did that. And secondly, Trump is obsessed with repealing and erasing every accomplishment of the black president that he hated so deeply because of his skin color. So you had that, the two together. So they repeal it. They repeal the individual mandate. And what happens? Just like they were warned and they didn't care, in step 20 Republican attorney generals and one Republican governor to file a lawsuit saying now that you get rid of the individual mandate, the whole ACA has to be thrown out. It was a 1-2 punch to get rid of the ACA. And what was their argument? Well, the 2012 case that upheld the ACA was predicated on the finding that Congress had the power to implement the ACA because of the mandate, because they viewed it as a tax. And Congress has a power to tax. So they said Congress has a power to tax, hence they can impose the mandate, which was viewed as a tax, and the rest of the law then stays intact. Well, by getting rid of the tax part, you gutted the entire law, that the legal basis for Congress to enact this. And it might seem weird, but Congress can't enact a law on anything it wants. On federal, there's certain things that are limited, that are only state control. Well, the way they got around that was by putting this tax. The GOP got rid of the tax. So 20 Republicans, attorney generals, and one governor filed a lawsuit in federal court in Dallas, Texas, last year, saying, well, without the mandate now that we got rid of, thanks to Trump and the GOP, the whole thing goes away. And sadly, last June, a Republican-appointed judge in the state of Texas ruled that the ACA was no longer valid, that in essence it was unconstitutional. It was an unconstitutional exercise of power by Congress because there was no more tax, so they couldn't do it. And how did Donald Trump respond to that? Do you think he would respond like, this is terrible, we're going to lose pre-existing health care coverage for people? Nope, his exact tweet from that date, I'll read it. As I predicted all along, Obamacare has been struck down as an unconstitutional disaster. And then he laughably called for Congress to pass a law of health care. Meanwhile, he's never proposed any kind of health care bill. He's only talked about repealing it. So despite Donald Trump's lies to his base, because he has no respect for you, because that's why he lies to you, and the rest of us are outraged by it, but those in his base are not, you should care about this. So Donald Trump is telling you in June, just last month, he's going to cover pre-existing conditions. He's championing it. Meanwhile, since March, his lawyers have been in court. They filed a detailed brief in May saying, get rid of the whole ACA and every single part of it. And sadly, yesterday, they had the appeal before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans. There's 3 federal judges, 2 Republican appointees. And according to CNN, whose reporter was there, the 2 Republican appointees strongly suggested that when Trump and the GOP eliminated the individual mandate, it had jeopardized the entire law. Now, we don't know how they're going to rule for sure, but it seems like they're likely going to rule in favor of what the GOP judge did at the lower level and affirm the decision, meaning the ACA is unconstitutional. Of course, there will be an appeal to the Supreme Court, and the question is what happens there. And if what happens there is that the ACA is gone, I want to talk about the real world impact. And I also want to share and remind people, because we haven't talked about this in a while, that when I was a lawyer in a big firm in New Jersey, when I first got out of law school, one of our 2 big clients were healthcare carriers. So I did work on the behalf of health insurance carriers for a few years. Until I worked to a smaller firm, which was much nicer and easier to live with myself working in. And I'll tell you what we did to people before the ACA and how you got screwed over. But first, let's talk about the real world. If the ACA is struck down, like Donald Trump is advocating, and let's be very clear, his lawyers wrote a detailed brief in May advocating getting rid of the ACA, every part of it, not preserving pre-existing conditions, all of it gone. What happens is it's not just people who get policies through the ACA that are affected. Every single American who get health insurance from anywhere is going to be potentially affected in various ways. From not being able to keep your children on their policy up until they're 26 like now, to going back to the days that seniors and older people before eligible for Medicare were charged 5 times the rate of younger people, to having caps on annual benefits. So if you got really sick, you thought you had insurance policy, there was a cap. Many people didn't even know about it. Well, that's when they stopped paying and you're on your own. And the list goes on, but to me, the most real world impact is getting rid of coverage for pre-existing conditions. And as I saw firsthand as a lawyer, what the big insurance companies will do is do anything they can not to pay your claim. And if you keep your health insurance policy now, just so it's clear, I don't want to get people worried about this and scared for no reason. Here's where you should be concerned, though. If you change jobs and get new health insurance policy, that's where you have to be concerned. If you don't have insurance now and you're applying for insurance for the first time, that's when you should be concerned. If you have a health insurance policy now with your company, it's the same policy renewed year after year after year. It's very unlikely they're going to change it. But it's not guaranteed. But here's what happens in the world if you get rid of the ACA in regards to pre-existing conditions. 3 scenarios. If you have any pre-existing medical condition, which means you've treated for anything, here are the 3 scenarios. One is the insurance company will offer you insurance at a ridiculously high rate for premiums, huge deductibles, and huge copays. That's one thing. So you get an offer of insurance, but it's horrible in how much it's going to cost and in terms of what you're going to have to pay out of pocket. Number 2, they offer you insurance, but preclude covering your whatever your condition is. So they go, okay, you had cancer. We'll insure anything else new, but we're not insuring your cancer. So all those bills are on your own. Or third, and this is the worst case, they deem you uninsurable completely, meaning no insurance company is going to insure you. You're on your own. Typical conditions pre-ACA that resulted in people being deemed uninsurable, or at least exclusions for coverage, included things like cancer, like arthritis, sleep apnea, congestive heart failure, even pregnancy. So if you got pregnant once, they're not going to cover the second pregnancy. That's what happened pre-ACA. I think we all forget the world we lived in then. And the list goes on of so many conditions that they would either exclude or deem you uninsurable, from epilepsy to Crohn's disease, and the list goes on. And the last 2 scenarios where they're going to exclude coverage or deem you uninsurable, if they're going to exclude coverage for your pre-existing condition or you're uninsurable and you get sick, you have to pay for every single bill out of pocket, everything. And those were the days when people went bankrupt. Those were the days when people lost their home to pay their medical bills. Those were the days, as studies have shown, where Americans died, literally died, because they had no access to health care. That's the world we go back to. And here's the worst part, and I will share it as a lawyer, what we used to do. Say you got cancer or some horrible disease that's going to cost the insurance company a lot of money, and it's the first time you had it. The insurance company will then hire lawyers like me. I don't do this anymore. Hire lawyers like me who will subpoena every time you were treated by any doctor anywhere, hoping to find that you were treated one time for that condition and you didn't reveal it on your application. So you had treated one time for, say, sleep apnea, something more mild, but you didn't tell it because you didn't have it for 5 more years and you apply for this new insurance and you don't write down you were treated for sleep apnea. And we find that what happens is not only are you just excluded for coverage for sleep apnea, we rescind the entire policy saying it was fraud in the inducement. The entire policy is gone for you and your family. You get your premiums back, you have no coverage, and you're out on your own. That's the world we go back to. That's the world Donald Trump wants to go back to. Why? It helps big insurance companies. There's no doubt about it. The worst thing for them is covering people with pre-existing conditions because you're talking about insurance companies are businesses. So if they can say you're uninsurable because you're a financial risk to them, they love that. They go, nope, we can't insure this person. They've got cancer or they have a heart condition. They have to go get a stent, which costs like $100,000 if you go to hospital. Anything like that. They go, you're uninsurable. You're on your own. Now, you could apply in certain states. They had these high-risk pools, which were a joke. You had to wait 6 months or to a year to be deemed eligible to even apply for these. And then when you got these high-risk policies through the state, they had, again, high deductibles, high copays. No insurance whatsoever. I think that this demands more insurance media coverage because it affects our lives. And the reason it's not getting as much coverage is because we do not have the Court of Appeals decision. We will have it at some point, maybe later this summer, maybe in the fall, who knows? It could be next week. There's no rule about it. They can come down with it. It's not like Supreme Court. These guys can come down anytime with it. I think that'll get more coverage, but I think deserves more coverage is Donald Trump out there literally lying. That's why I played the clip of Donald Trump lying, saying we are going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, while in court, they are literally arguing to take that away from you. And that's where we are. And if now politically, you can think this through and go, okay, so say in a few weeks from now, the Court of Appeals affirms the lower court decision and says the ACA is unconstitutional, it's gone. But we're going to hold this decision's effectiveness until the Supreme Court decides one way or the other. That means next summer, at this time, we will have a decision in June. It will become the issue of 2020, especially if the ACA is ruled unconstitutional and everyone in America goes back to pre-ACA times. Does that help Democrats? On some level, yes, because polls show most Americans trust us far over Republicans. But it's bad for human beings. So I don't care politically what's good. I never do. I care about what helps people. This is bad for you. This is bad for you if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, if you're not registered to vote, if you're independent, if you're a Trumper. This is bad. On the good-bad paradigm of life, this is really, really bad. I'm telling you, I'm warning you as a lawyer who used to do this coverage, you don't want to go back there. And if you're a Trumper, you should be pushing your elected members of the House and Senate to get ready to pass a bill to protect people for pre-existing condition coverage. I don't know if you're going to move them. They don't care. They get more money from health insurance companies than you could ever give them. Let's be blunt. That's all they care about. We have a corrupt political system. We have a corrupt political system overall. Forget Democrat, Republican. We have a corrupt political system where we have illegal bribery in terms of not just normal donations. That's one thing. Of legal super PACs where a corporation can literally give $1 million to a candidate's super PAC. How are we supposed to compare to that? And if a member of Congress ever tells you, I don't care, Democrat or Republican, tells you, hey, I view all things equally, the same, I view your vote as equal as someone gave $1 million to my super PAC, that person's either a liar or an idiot. And in either case, they should not be in Congress. Because what kind of moron would listen to my vote over $1 million to a super PAC? Nobody. Nobody would. You're a moron if you do that. Let's be blunt. You're an idiot. You should listen to $1 million. And that's the problem. That's the fundamental problem with our system here. That it's legal to bribe members of Congress in the Senate and the House. That's a fundamental issue, and it's all intertwined with this stuff. So I'd love to hear from you on this. What do you think what's going to happen with this? Do you think this is going to percolate through and be an issue? I'm hoping the 2020 Dems, July 30th and 31st, the next debate, we hear this a lot more. I think this is so important for Democrats to talk about on a human level, to remind people of America pre-ACA and the pain that so many families went through and the heartache of going bankrupt, losing their homes, losing all their savings, generation of savings, because someone simply got sick and no insurance carrier would cover them, or they covered them and then dropped them when the policy was over because they deemed them then uninsurable. They could do that pre-ACA. As cruel as that sounds, that was allowed pre-ACA. So all of us should, I don't care where you are politically, you should love the protections of the ACA. You could hate Obama all day. Don't even have to call it Obamacare if you're on the right. But this is something you should be fighting for. So let's take a break. I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748 right here on the Dean Obeidallah Show. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump as a criminal. The question is,